like just things that I never would have ever thought as that 23, 24-year-old girl that was like totally struggling. Like, this is my lifeline. And then moving further, I was like total workaholic. My career was my identity. Then moving further past that, I know I'm more than just hair, but being a hairstylist has been the vehicle for me to radically change my life and have the quality of life that I have now. And just, it's taught me how to like communicate with people and like be empathetic, but not in a place that's depleting, like being in the service industry, but still take care of myself. Like all of that has been lessons from being a hairstylist. I'm really grateful for my career.
Hello and welcome. I would love, and I am so excited to welcome Rebecca Taylor to It's So Much More Than Hair. I first came across Rebecca a couple of years ago, just on Instagram as an amazing and extraordinary colour technician. But as we know, when we start to follow people on social media, we discover so much more about them, and you know, there's always another element and another facet to people's lives and personalities. And I'm so excited to bring to you this amazing person and hairdresser, Rebecca Taylor, who
Wow.
I've discovered, that there's, she's a transformational specialist, a beauty pro, a mindset coach, and she's also an amazing and extraordinary educator. Welcome, Rebecca.
Good morning, Helen. Well, it's good morning for me. I don't know what time it is in Australia, but thanks for having me and thanks for such an awesome intro. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Oh, wonderful. It's actually 1 a.m. here. So,
Holy crap. Okay, well, kind of
no,
morning.
that's a yeah, good morning to you and good morning. Yeah. But it's very well worth being up for this. So, yeah. So I'd just love to, just chat and just see for you how it all began. Rebecca, how would you like to? Yeah.
Sure. Okay. We talked a little bit before you hit record, and I was like how it began when I was born in 81, or so I'm gonna pick
Yeah,
a place to start.
you just go.
And it's gonna be like in the industry. We'll keep it like that being the beginning of my journey, and then I'm sure there will be opportunities to like talk about life intertwined in there. But I began my journey in hairdressing or as a hairstylist at 24. Um, 23 into 24. 24 is when I like finished for sure. And I'm about to have my 43rd birthday in a week, about a week. So almost 20 years, just about 20 years I've been in the industry. And you mentioned you looked at my website and I talked a bit about it in depth in my bio. And I do. I go in, I'm very vulnerable talking about becoming a hairstylist wasn't like, oh, I've always known I wanted to be this. It was that I felt like I needed something. I needed like a way out from my situation. I'd been on my own since I was like 17. It was just always like I wasn't inclined to be successful at that age. I was just like, oh, I need something. I don't know what it was. And I had a grant that was about to run out. And so that was the only way I would be able to go to school and pay for it was this grant. And so I'm like, all right, cosmetology. I mean, it doesn't sound very glamorous and it doesn't sound like passion filled, but when I started school, it was the first thing in my life that I was good at. Like, there wasn't much to give me self-worth prior to that point, honestly. That's just, I was like kind of a lost kid. And then I was really, really good at it. And I started taking photos of my work way back then. That was like MySpace days. We didn't have social media like we knew it now, but I had like my 35 millimeter camera in there. I'm looking through the viewfinder in these like silly cameras and taking pictures of my work. And, knowing what I know now, I was like building my portfolio and like the ways that I've been able to use social media to like leverage getting myself and my brand out there. But right from the bat, right off the bat, I was like super driven. I made Dean's List. I like graduated early because I challenged like the state board because I had all my credits done. So I graduated early. I was the first person in that community college ever to do that in the cosmetology program. And then I started at, I don't know if you're going to know what a Regis is, but it's like just a mall salon, nothing special. I never assisted anyone. I just took everybody and anybody. It was a lot of walk-ins. And I feel like I learned through experience and trial and error. And I took chances and I started seeing models very early on to do whatever I wanted and to experiment further. And then that took me into independent stylist. And then 2 years out of school, I began my journey in education with a company called Joico. They gave me a lot of like fundamental public speaking and just the background and, you know, trichology, chemistry, color theory. I got a lot of great education. I was with them for 7 years. And let's see, I'm like giving you a mouthful, but I moved into the education space in the independent route. And at that time, there wasn't really independent education because prior to that, nobody could really market themselves because social media wasn't a thing. But because of me early on, from MySpace, then to Facebook, then to Instagram, building my community on social media, I was able to position myself as an independent without brand affiliation and started going on tour and planning my own curriculum and yeah, that just grew. And so I'm in like my 17th year of education and now it's kind of evolved and shifted into the coaching space because of my personal journey and growth in this industry. And I planned a retreat that sold out in Thailand for God's sakes. You know, like just things that I never would have ever thought as that 23, 24-year-old girl that was like totally struggling. Like, this is my lifeline. And then moving further, I was like total workaholic. My career was my identity. Then moving further past that, I know I'm more than just hair, but being a hairstylist has been the vehicle for me to radically change my life and have the quality of life that I have now. And just, it's taught me how to like communicate with people and like be empathetic, but not in a place that's depleting, like being in the service industry, but still take care of myself. Like all of that has been lessons from being a hairstylist. I'm really grateful for my career.
That is just amazing.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, but
It's a
it's, you
lot.
know, but that's what hairdressing is, isn't it? Hairdressing is a lot because what happens is when you're, you know, because we are dealing with so many people who come at us with a lot, we just get that, don't we? We have that,
Yeah.
that array of information that comes to us. So it just puts us out there in that bigger picture. So kind of like, oh, like let's try this, that, or whatever, doesn't it? It's sort of it really does expand your opportunity out there. And but it's like, yeah. I'm just thinking,
Exactly.
you gave us
It's
so
a
much. Where do
mouthful.
we go? Where do we go?
Well, exactly. I mean, you were like, tell me a little bit about yourself and your career. I'm like, it is not a Cliff Notes version. It's been so crazy. Like it's changed my life. Like, I'm like, we can go from there, but I'm like, buckle up. It's been a journey, that's for damn sure.
I love it though. That's the thing. I
Thank
think,
you.
and we actually do need it for us to remain passionate and inspirational. We need excitement, don't we? We need to be like, you know, yeah, it's like the deers in the headlights. So, you know, let's talk about the retreat. What can we?
Okay. I
Yeah.
love talking about that.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
Cool. Okay, we're gonna start with the most recent thing and then back it up. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's wild to me that this retreat has nothing to do with hair. And in fact, a lot of the attendees that are coming are musicians, are nail techs, are like nothing to do with hair. And it's just really brilliant to me that based on building my community and platform that's expanded into just humans in general, like creatives, people that are interested in branding their business and marketing their business. And that's essentially what this retreat is. It kind of like incorporates my love for Southeast Asia and Thailand. Like being in Australia, you know, Thailand and Southeast Asia and Bali and all that is a lot of Aussies go there. And it isn't that convenient for me. It's a 20-hour flight, but I've made the trip like 10, 11 times. I'm in love with Southeast Asia. And so my experience with just growing as a human and like learning the culture and knowing like it's not as scary as you think to travel. Like, here,
Mm.
let me be your guide is essentially like why I wanted to do it. So it was one part that and one part like play with purpose is what it's called. So there's lots of play. It's a lot of like adventure travel, zip lining, elephant sanctuaries, running scooters and bathing in waterfalls in the dawn, like crazy fun shit like that. And then the purpose part is we've hired a photographer to take everybody's this is like a branding photo shoot. So we work on our brand and our identity online and like what are you trying to market and just, like the piece of the puzzle that may be missing to some people is like how do you show up authentically online and how do you visually show your authentic self. So there's some workshops in that regard, but it's just taking the two things that I'm wildly passionate about, which is how I've been able to market myself online and create this life that I want. And also Thailand. I'm like, pinch me. This is the coolest shit I might have ever done. It's so cool. And the fact that I didn't even heavily promote it online. I promoted it on my stories. I talked about it on my stories. I only posted one time about it on my actual page, and that was after it was sold out. So 18 people resonated with what I was sharing and my passion and booked it without heavy going in, like promoting. And it just was like, wow, universe, thank you for giving me the evidence that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And we're already scouting out the next one for Bali while I'm over there. And we already have a wait list started for Bali with other people that are interested. So I'm like, this is great. This is really cool.
Wow, that'd be
Yeah.
good. Well, yeah, I did see Bali's 2026, so I don't know, maybe some Aussies
Come
could
on,
join you
Helen.
too.
Come on,
Yes,
Helen.
I
Yeah, it's
love
easy for
Bali.
you. Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah.
Me
Bali's
too.
like Bali's like our Queensland here, which is kind of now northern. Well, I'm
Yeah.
southern Australia, so but Bali's like our backyard.
That's so cool. Like I know that to be true because I spent the longest stint abroad that I've ever spent was in Australia. I mean, it was Melbourne and it was Gold Coast and like 2 months at one point and then several weeks and I've been back like 4 or 5 times. And I was just thinking this morning, like someone else reached out to me she's coming to Vegas and she has this community of people in a coaching space. She's also a hairstylist, but like she had me come because of, I don't know, maybe like you were following me online and whatever, but like I love Aussies and I don't know what it is, but like something keeps drawing me back to some stuff to do with Australia. And all my friends are completely in love with Bali. That's like their holiday twice a year, whatever. And I'm like, I know that to be true. And it's just interesting that you reached out to me within the same week as this other woman to do her thing. And I'm like, what's with all the Australia stuff lately? I'm into it though. I'm
You're
into
meant
it.
to be here.
I know. I agree. I know. That's
Yeah,
cool.
that's great. So, like, yeah, the branding, like, that's a really big thing nowadays, isn't it? Like, it's such I mean, because of social media and because of, just the speed that everything evolves, it's such a big thing. Like, can you talk a little bit about that, or, like
Yeah.
how? Yeah, I'll leave it to you.
That's so loaded. And I'm sure you just
It
said
is.
people talk so much about it. There's so much static online. You're following so many social media pages that give you conflicting information, like you should do this and you should do this. And it becomes overwhelming. And I feel like that's why a lot of people just don't even start or they're just like sensory overload. So I don't know what's right. So, it can be really, really frustrating. But I will tell you from experience that if you got to first be passionate about something, whatever it is, like that's the crux of like putting yourself out there because people sniff that out a mile away. If you're just going through the motions or you're faking it or you don't love what you do, that is evident. So first you have to be passionate about something. And from experience, I feel like if you just put that out there authentically, then you'll evolve into something making more sense visually. Like, so what I did is like, I knew I loved hair. I mean, like I said, from the beginning, in hair school, this was starting. I'm like, oh, I'm so passionate about this thing. I ate it, breathed it, slept it, like hair. And so I just would capture that. So I'd take photos. I would hire photographers, like as time went on a little bit, to record me doing hair. And I didn't even know what I was doing. This was back in MySpace days. I did not know what I was doing at the time, but I was just doing all the things that felt right. And so I was creating content back then. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know? And then as time went on, then social media became more of a, okay, we're talking about this. We're having this conversation. We're able to build businesses because of this. We're able to do these things. So, all right, then it gets like more nuance. Then you're like talking about brand identity. How do you stand out in this sea of people that are all doing the same shit that you're doing? Um, how do you find a way visually that like translates your passion? So that's when we get into like brand identity and colors and like modes of creating content and content schedules. And it sounds like a lot to
Wow.
wade through. But if you just keep showing up authentically, you will progressively evolve because
Mm.
you have to stay passionate. You have to learn new things. You have to incorporate new apps. You have to do that to stay I'll be honest, like staying relevant is hard. I've been able to luckily evolve through all these different platforms, and I kind of like hit the brakes with what do you call it? TikTok,
Yeah.
because my mindset, this is a limiting belief. I 100% know this. I'm not even going to sit here and be like, it's too much. If I wanted it bad enough, I could get it. But for whatever reason, I have these limiting beliefs and these blocks with like a new one and a new one and a new one. And so I just stay on Instagram. But in order to evolve, I know that that's the next step for me. I'm just not ready to do the work yet. But you do. I mean, sometimes it gets tiring, and that's why you take breaks and you're staying honest with yourself and asking for help when you need it. But yeah, what do you think? Do you think social media sometimes can be overwhelming?
Oh, extremely. And the thing is like what I'm getting from you is like how well it's been a blessing for you to actually. I think you've done it all innately, and you know, just like you said right from the start, just using your own camera, that sort of thing. So you've kind of been on top of it, like almost intuitively, like right from the start. So whereas for someone else coming in, and I know even for myself, I've observed it. You know, I've been on social media for years, and I'm happy to look and scroll or participate, but to actually get into it and start doing it, it is overwhelming. And then you've got all the platforms, like you say,
Mhm.
that you know what's working. And nowadays, like as you know, like Facebook has become, you know, you kind of need to be on that to kind of like have have a bit of a presence and see what's going on, but it's very commercial. Then you've got Instagram that's now just become that real, source um, of information, and it's really current. I love Instagram, you know, and then you've got TikTok, which is a completely different.
It's
It's
what the
almost.
kids are doing. It's all and I guarantee there will be something after TikTok that the younger generation is gonna be doing. I was given this advice. This was my then best friend, Guy Tang. He was, he like we were best friends for like 7 years. He very much knew ahead of time what he had, like a vision with social media. And he said, whatever the kids are doing, get on it. It's
Mm-hmm,
because he had a lot of like beauty influencer clients and stuff like that. So he would hear what they were doing because they were already massive, like millions on YouTube and stuff like that. So he was listening, and he would say all these years ago, print media is dead. And that's back in the day where we're still looking at like,
mm,
we're looking at BTC magazines and Creative Head, and we're looking at all these magazines, but he's like, print media is dead. And the end all be all is not to be in print, it is to do your own thing on social media. And so he would say whatever the kids are into, which would at that time Facebook was already popping, and he was like, the kids are on Instagram, the kids are
mm-hmm,
on like all these things, and I'm like, okay, we'll get on that. The kids then got on TikTok, and they were doing their dances, and then it evolved into everything. We have got to get out of our own way of like, we're too old, this is too
mm-hmm.
much, like that is the biggest limiting belief, and like that is I work with a lot of coaching clients that say what you said about like it's just a lot. You know, I'm scrolling and I'm observing, but I'm not like participating. There are
Yeah.
two ways to think about it. Either are you a creator or are you a consumer? And I've had to differentiate. And I'm like, okay, sure, I'll scroll within reason because you have to see what's going on. And plus it's just like you zone out doing it. But then I really have to get a handle on it. And I'm like, I'm here to create. I'm not here to consume. Because if you fall into and stay in the consumer role, it is very damaging.
Hmm.
And you start comparing and you're like, well, what's
Yes.
the point? This is too much. This person has these many followers. I'll never get to that. Like this person's content's great. I can't film like that. Consumer role, just you're dead in the water. You have to be in the creator role and sometimes don't even scroll. If it's not serving you, just show up, post your shit, talk on your stories, get in and get out. Get in and get
Yeah.
out. That's what I do, you know?
That's great advice, really, because that's another question I was going to ask is, there's a lot of fear that's involved in actually putting yourself out there, and you have to, and there's no doubt everybody feels it. It's just the person who actually presses send and uploads their video. So, how easy is it, or how hard is it to approach that and work through that?
Oh wow, is that loaded, Helen?
I'm
There's
sorry.
like no. Only for, I mean, it's gonna be loaded specifically for me, and I'll tell you why. Like I self-medicated for years. Like when I was on my climb of success, we'll call it, you know, and then using social media, like I like drank. I'm not saying like, oh, I have to like take a shot to make a post, you know what I mean? But like whenever the self-doubt or the self-worth issues got too hard, like I would self-medicate. Like I'd either smoke weed or take Xanax for anxiety. So I was like going through this like climb on social media and putting myself out there and just being very vulnerable. And it wasn't in full clarity. I will say that. So I ended up getting sober almost 4 years ago because all of my anxiety that I had just stacked and just the doubt and the external validation, like all this shit that happens, I think, with the average person putting yourself online, I just stuffed it and stuffed it and stuffed it. And then my use of anxiety medication, like, was just full blown. I had to enter treatment. I ended up like I said, I'm almost in December 2020, I'll be 4 years sober. I had to relearn putting myself out there on social media with nothing. Raw dogging reality and raw dogging like sitting in shame and fear and imposter syndrome. I had to at 39 years old establish my self-worth, and some of it I never even had it. It was because of my work, it was because of success online, it was because of like I was getting flown here, there, and everywhere and getting paid whatever, all this external stuff that I never worked on internal. And so
Mm.
now it's a different story. And I will tell you, sometimes when I post, I have to think about like if I have a visceral feeling, like I created this great, let me just give me an example. I created this great reel that I'm very proud of. I know when I'm about to hit send, it's either going to tank and people are going to think it is as great as I do, or it's going to do really, really well, which in that case, it's like dopamine hits,
Yeah.
or it's like this. So I have this visceral response sometimes, I'm like, oh, I hope this does well. But you know what I do? I do it anyways. And I lean way, 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 way hard into self-worth work. And that's why I moved into the coaching space, is because I feel all of this. You're talking about fear. You're talking about like, well, I've never put myself out there fully because of like potential for being shamed. What if it's not good enough? What if I fail? All these what ifs. Like I get it. I've gone through that. And
Hmm.
I don't know what fucked with me more. Pardon me. I don't know if I'm supposed to curse or not. I'm
No,
going to.
that's I love it.
Okay, good. Like, I don't know. I feel like everybody's different or whatever, but I personally feel it was brutal to see like this certain amount of success and then, and I'm talking like newly sober, a raw nerve, had to close my salon very publicly, got dropped by a brand. Like all these things were happening at once where I felt low, 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 almost worse than like when I started out. I'm like, I don't know. That was my, and then having to rebuild from there. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, this is gnarly, but I've done it, I'm doing it, and that's why I think we should be having these conversations. I think it should be normalized talking about mental health and social media and self-care and relevancy and evolving. I feel like we should be talking about all this stuff.
So true. And it's interesting you say that because, I've been into self development and that and even spiritual growth for many, many years. I opened up years ago, and this is not an interview about me or anything, but it's just but but viewing the world from that position and then viewing our industry. I actually created a couple of courses, and now I've evolved them just recently to meet the needs of employers and staff in the industry. So called You're Worth It Boss and You're Worth It Stylist,
I
because
love it.
because it is about worthiness. It's always about worthiness, and we all have some level of whether some people bluff their worthiness and others just really show it on their sleeve, whether it's discounting their prices, which again I saw you talk about on in your bio, and where hairdressers are constantly giving to people. And most of it it comes from our heart. So because it does, we degrade it a lot, don't we? Because we don't put a value on it.
That's one of the hardest things to navigate as being a hairstylist when you're independent and you come up with your own prices. We end up emotionally discounting because
Yeah,
we got close to our client and they've shared parts of themselves. And then a lot of hairstylists are empaths. And I just want to say this one thing. I know it might be mincing of words, but okay, so the root of path, when you say empath, is like pathology, which is diseased, not good, all the negatives, like it's a disorder, right? And so we can have empathy, but when we call ourselves empaths, that means we have an issue with empathy and we're actually depleting ourselves and we're emptying our cup trying to fill up other people's. And that's what happens when we emotionally discount because we're like, oh, if I knock off the price, they'll feel better and blah blah blah, but you just feel depleted in the end. So I did so much work around empathy, and I do have empathy, but when it comes to my business, I will no longer be an empath where it affects my business. And I've had to be like, friendship is here and business is here, and the gray area is I try really really hard to not have a whole lot of gray area because I'm not running a charity, I'm running a business.
definitely. That is so. And I've personally myself, I understand exactly what you're saying about the empath, and I've never really, connected with that as people use that as a description of themselves, because I see exactly what you're saying with that. We take that on and we actually own it and become that instead of actually identifying and going, yeah, there's a bit of empathy. Yeah, it can be a really draining. It's not a quality, is it? I shouldn't, say it like that. But it's not. It's
Having empathy is a good quality. Having empathy,
yeah,
a fair amount of empathy. I feel like every human, to be like a proper human, should have empathy for their fellow human. But I wouldn't call a positive quality being like an empath because, like I said, it's disordered in some way. You're leveling your needs like way down here, and somebody else is up here. I feel like you can have empathy and still meet your needs. And you're right. People will fall into that role of like, I'm an empath, and then you speak it, it becomes true, it becomes a part of your identity, and then you have all kinds of like subconscious things happening at that point where you're like, oh, like this is what I'm supposed to do, I'm an empath, I'm supposed to deplete myself in the service industry. I'm like, no you're not. No you're not.
no, not at all. That's
Mm-mm.
there. So let's talk about your coaching then. Like I love that you've got all that experience and that depth to actually help and share that with the industry. So yeah,
I love
like
it.
do people did how'd that come about?
Okay, so I'll tell you how that came about. Okay, so there was this point during the pandemic when I was not in a good way. I was very like impulsive and like right before I went to treatment, I'm like scrambling and then I offered coaching because I still have built a community. I still have a reputation in this industry. I was doing like Zoom coaching, but I was not in a good way myself. And I actually had a lot of shame around that because it was more like a trauma response and like a fear mechanism, like offer coaching, offer coaching. It's because I can't work because I was in West Hollywood and my salon was shut down for 7 months of 2020. So I was like, I freaked out and I offered coaching when I feel like I wasn't in the position to be doing that. Like, sure, I had some authority in our industry, but I don't know, I wasn't qualified. And so I had a lot of shame around that. And so it took me a minute to actually put myself in the coaching space. But I had to do all this work. I had to do all this inner work. I had to get all this therapy. I had to see coaches myself. I actually did see a coach myself moving through the shame of like, well, I did it once from an unhealed place and I want to do it again because I know I can make a difference, but I can't split the difference because of the shame. So this
Mm.
person like helped me work through it. And then I started getting out of my own way and I started knowing like, wow, this is really fulfilling work because we need to have these conversations like we're having now, but like one on one. Like I know I can help people because I know I've experienced such a shift, not only like my role in this industry and like what I do for work, but like as a human. And I'm like, let me take these two and put them together. And I know I'm not a therapist. And we joke as hairstylists, like, oh, we're basically therapists. I'm like, there's a difference. And I learned how to hold space instead of trying to fix people's shit. I've
Mm.
learned how to like be a mirror and ask questions instead of like, I'm gonna get all biblical for a minute. It's like teaching somebody how to fish instead of just giving them a fish. So like after our work together, they're gonna have all kinds of coping strategies and like mechanisms and like be able to look internally and all kinds of stuff that affects their business and building their brand as an educator and all these things they wanted to do, but they were in their own way, stuff I have experience on. And then I was like, well, let me qualify myself even more because the coaching space is oversaturated. Let's just call it what it is because you don't really have any regulation in that coaching space. But I felt like I wanted to learn more. I wanted to be ethical. I wanted to be responsible. So I got several certifications in like boundaries, self-worth work, trauma informed, like several certifications. Just so, I mean, I feel like just as a human and being in this industry, I was qualified, but I'm like, let me do more. Let me be more responsible and put myself in the position to help people as much as I can. And so about 2.5 years I've been doing it. I only work one-on-one with people, which for me, I feel like that's really fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at now. And I'm not trying to scale this on some massive level. That's why I do multiple things. That's why I still technically educate. That's why I moved into the space of like a retreat situation. Like I want to do all the things that make me passionate, but I don't want to get burnt out. So I'm not like trying to scale this coaching business to a crazy level at this point. I want it to be about quality work with people over quantity.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love that it is the one-on-one and, like again, about 10, when was it? It's getting on a bit, but yeah, about 10 or 12 years ago, I did a coaching qualification as well. And back then it was it was life coaching. But
Mhm.
after that, it took off as coaching people to make money in their businesses and things like that. And again, I saw from that helicopter perspective that yeah, that was achieving and all that, but it wasn't always fulfilling because people were coming out going, yeah, I've made X amount, but I'm still not happy on the inside.
Yeah.
There's still an element. I love hairdressing. I love doing what I'm doing, but I'm making money, but I'm empty.
Mm.
And it's just
Big
being able
time. I
to.
experienced that. I definitely experienced that. Like the top of my game, being paid like all kinds of money by these brands. I'm like, whoa, why am I still so unfulfilled? And it was just that I had this massive void in me on a spiritual level. And you mentioned spirituality. Like I had to have I had to have like a certain spiritual awakening, and it had a lot to do with like my self-worth. I'm always preaching this shit. Like if you don't believe in yourself and you have unresolved trauma and you have all this internal stuff, then all the external in the world isn't going to really fill the void. So I had to just take a step back and like do deep inner work. And I feel like that's everybody's rite of passage. Nobody can force you to go into like this healing journey or on this path, but it is helpful when people are having these conversations and there are resources and there is guidance. Like that's why this calls to me, because I'm like, I had a support system. I had people that I early on that like were safe spaces, and I'm like, I want to be that for somebody because it's really important work to me.
It is so important. And it's, you know, it's even more impactful when you've got that, that, that experience and knowledge to as your background for it as well, because it just makes it so much more powerful, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I feel like we could just, go on and on. There's so many more topics that I could come to, but I feel like we need to actually have another another meeting another day and
Do it,
explore
part two.
definitely. So yeah, otherwise time will just go on and on, which we love, but we've got other things. So I'm going to just ask you just a couple of quirky questions. So with your with hairdressing and even your color work or anything, what has been like a really inspirational point for you, or a memory or something that really sticks with you?
Hard.
I
That's
know.
hard because like I don't know. I will say one that came to mind right away is several years ago. Well, first of all, I created this Facebook group for hairstylists. It's the largest professional only private group. Like consumers, non-hairdressers can't get in there. It's called Hairstylist Education Group. And admittedly, I've abandoned it because I'm not on Facebook anymore. It just exists. It has like 150,000 stylists in there, and it's just existing,
Yeah.
being self-sufficient, I think. But I was so involved in that group, and it is like, it helped like catalyze my own career in the independent space and so many other people from that group. Well, years ago, we had some event called HEF Gives Back. That's the acronym. Hairstylist Education Forum was HEF. So we had HEF Gives Back. And so it was this massive education event, and we brought hairstylists in from all over the country, like really good hairstylists. They were just like, you know what I mean, like people you'd look at online and you'd be like, oh my god, I'd love to learn from them. And the whole event was free, and there were about 500 people, and I was able to leverage my brand like relationships to get them to pay for everything. So all of it was paid for by brands. And I mean, it was a day long fest, more or less. And there was like 13 educators, tons of stage work, loads of stuff, food, swag, the whole thing. And I was just like, this makes me so happy to be able to give back for free on this level, that I was able to do it. And all the educators participated and did it for free. It was like, it was a feel good event. And at the beginning, like it was just the longest standing ovation ever. And they like I was like, I can't even believe it. And then they like recorded my grandma's like message to me and played it. She's passed
Oh,
away since, but it was like all my favorite
oh,
people in the world. And I'm gonna cry now. But it was just
oh,
like, whoa, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm
that
only
is
crying because
just,
my grandma. I forgot about that. But yeah, it was like one of the most special moments, over awards, over the places I've been able to travel. Like it was just really special.
yeah, that is just,
Yeah.
that is special and phenomenal to have that affirmation that you've actually done, that you're in the right space.
Yeah.
You're doing
It's
the right
great.
thing. Yeah, so good.
Once I get started crying, it's hard to stop. It just physically comes out at that point. Like I get misty, and then it's
Yeah.
like I stop crying. I'm not emotional, but then now I'm fucked up.
No, it's all right. So you can do your makeup again.
Yeah, I will.
Don't worry, I'm a crier too. I cry when I laugh and I cry when I cry.
Yeah, I do
Anyway.
too. I do too.
Okay, another funny question. And we've seen
Okay.
on your Instagram stories that you've cut your own hair and you
Oh
style
yeah.
your own hair, which makes it all the more amazing, fabulous to watch. But if you do entrust your hair to somebody, have you got
Yeah.
somebody that you love doing,
It takes a
allowing to
village.
do your hair? Yeah.
It takes a village because I am not consistent with stuff. So yeah, I like touch up and I did this initial red myself. My hair was 2 years uncolored. It was virgin. And I was like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm ready to like be expressive again. So I did it that initial time, but my good friend Jay Ladner, if we're around each other, he'll do me a solid and touch up my roots and like refresh it. I will chop at it. I've been chopping at it, but for my massive haircut, it was like hippie hair, all one length, virgin brown with grays. I had nothing going on, but like my friend Savannah, Savvy, I don't know. I don't know her Instagram. No, I'm literally going to find her Instagram real quick because that's not right if I don't say it. But she did that like iconic shag that I like never knew
Love
I needed, but got. And oh yeah, Savvy Heart's hair. I love Savannah. She's like in a couple towns over, but like she did this iconic cut. And then I don't know. Otherwise, I do it myself because I have control issues.
it looks beautiful. I love your hair. I had a
Thank you.
shag a couple of weeks ago, but it's
It's still
it's
there.
I haven't got the movement like you've
Yeah.
got.
That's why she's
um
a whisperer because like I did not know I had this texture. Like my hair was Shirley Temple when I was like a toddler, but then I
yeah,
just did so much to it and like blasted it with heat and bleach. And I'm like, can it ever do that again? And she knows how to razor cut. This is all
yeah.
her.
I love it. I love it. I feel
Thanks.
like we need to walk around with a guitar as well.
Oh, like 80s?
Yeah.
I felt like
70,
Ozzy Osbourne
70s
when it
for
was
me.
first out. Oh, okay. Well,
No,
in the morning, it's very Ozzy Osbourne. I'm not gonna mess it up to show you, but it's bad in the
it
morning.
looks beautiful.
Thank you.
And like, so any advice or inspiration you've got for all our newcomers and or anyone in the industry?
I it would have been different 4 years ago. I would have said something to do with like being driven and success and grind and da da da. Because I'm in the space that I'm in now and have continued to do this kind of work, like because we're in the service industry and we're giving, giving, giving. And that's the essence of what we do. Even as an educator, our who we serve then is our peers, you know? So because we're giving and giving, we have to take like a ton of effort taking care of ourselves. And that
Hmm.
means doing the inner work. And that means seeing therapist if that's your thing. Some people are not into talk therapy, but I highly recommend it. Getting guidance, finding safe spaces, wellness, self-care. Like I lived off of caffeine. And that's just like, it's a funny thing in our industry. We like mainline caffeine, blah, blah, blah. Like that will take a toll on you. So like just really take care of your body, your mind, just everything. So you can like show up in the best way
Mm.
possible, first for yourself and then for the people you're serving. And also, if you want this to be sustainable, if you want this to be a sustainable means to like make a living and a way for yourself, like if you're not taking care of yourself, shit will eventually hit the fan from experience. I know. And I'm talking about psychologically, emotionally, mentally, physically, all the ways. So always, always take care of yourself first. It's not selfish. And that's the best way you'll be able to show up in this industry.
Love it. That is such great advice. So good. Wow, thank you so much. Where can people find out about you, Rebecca?
Let's see. And thank you, Helen, by the way. This
You're
was fun.
welcome.
My Instagram across the board is pretty much Rebecca, Rebecca Taylor hair. And in the link in my bio, it just gives all the different ways and resources. It gives the link to the retreat, my website, which is RebeccaTaylorHair.com, makes it pretty simple. And then like my coaching offerings and all my independent classes and the tour and all that is in my bio on Instagram. So that's the best way.
Fantastic. I'll put that in the link anyway when we run the video. So thank you. I so appreciate your time. It's been amazing and I've just loved our chat. Thank you so much.
Same,
And
my pleasure.
and I hope we can actually chat again soon.
Sure. And I just thought about what time
Next.
it is there. You're gonna have to go to bed after this.
Yeah, that's all right. I do, but that's okay.
You're
This has
funny.
been well worth it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank
Okay.
you.
See you later.
Bye.